Hey, I'm going to talk a little bit about the pangram APT, which is one of the do it for fun, try it out APTs that's on the webpage. So I'm reading the problem statement, and I hope that you're going to take a little more time to read it than I am. We're going to look at a couple of things. First, a pangram is a sentence where every letter of the alphabet occurs at least once. And they give us an example down here of the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Every character in the alphabet, A through Z, occurs at least once. But we can see that's why there are no characters that occur no times. So the first number in this list is the number of characters in the alphabet that occur no times. This is the number of characters in the alphabet that occur one time, the number of characters that occur two times. And if we come back up, it says the value at the kth index is the number of letters that appear k times. And it says that means the value at index 0 is a number of letters that don't appear at all. So for an empty string, for example, which has no characters, that means 26 characters would not appear at all. So I'm guessing that for an empty string, I'm supposed to get a list of just the number 26. And we can see here, in this example, there are 18 characters that don't occur at all. There's one character that occurs one time, that's G. D and E each occur twice, so there are two characters that occur two times. Three H's, three K's, and three W's. Three characters that occur three times, and then two characters that occur four times. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's some other stuff about don't count upper and lowercase letters is different. The list should only be as long as needed. I'm going to worry about those afterward. So this looks like, how do I figure this out? I need a list, and I need to count how many times every character in the alphabet occurs. It even tells me there are 26 characters in the alphabet. I'm not supposed to pay attention to punctuation. So I'm going to need to count the A's, count the B's, count the C's, count the D's. Every letter is going to attribute a count. So I count them all, and if it doesn't occur at all, I'm going to have to put a 1 or update by 1 that value at the index 0. If it occurs one time, I'm going to update the value. So I'm pretty confident I need a list of numbers that represent counts. I'm kind of trying to figure out I think that's how I would do it by hand. I would just make a list of all zeros, and I'd count the A's, and depending on what that count was, I would update a value in that list. So I'm going to try that. So I'm going to go to my PyCharm. I'm going to make a new Python file. It's going to be named pangram. I already don't remember what the name of that function is, so I'm going to copy and paste that here. And I'm trying to get used to testing locally. So I'm going to say S is the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. I'm going to say R is, let's get the stats for S, and print R, the return value. And then I'm going to run this pangram. And I got an empty list, which is what I expected. So now I'm going to remind myself, because although I'm supposed to have it all figured out, I kind of go back and forth sometimes. So I'm going to need to loop over every character in the alphabet, count the A's, count the B's, count the C's, count the D's. So I'm going to need every character in the alphabet and a list to return. So I'm going to need a list of a lot of zeros. I don't know how many zeros I'm going to need. And I remember there's a shortcut. So from now, I'm just going to say I need 100 zeros. I don't think I'm going to actually need 100 zeros. I'm going to try to figure out what exactly that is. And then I'm going to need an alphabet. C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, V, W, X, Y, Z. And I'm going to loop over every character in the alphabet. And I'm going to count how many times it occurs in my string, which is given by the parameter sentence. But I'm going to convert that to lowercase. And I'm going to count how many times that occurs. And if it occurs one time, then I'm going to need to update the value at index 1. So I'm pretty sure I just take this and say, whatever that count is, let's increment that by 1. That's a little tricky, so I'm going to remind myself. If it occurred 0 times, I'm going to increment the value at index 0 by 1. And then I'm just going to return that. And if I run it again, let me go back and see what it was supposed to be for the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. 0, 20, 4, 1, 1. 0, 20, 4, 1, 1. Wow, they had to have all these extra zeros. Wow, maybe I could do something different than 100. And it occurs to me that that value 100 isn't exactly right, because what's the maximum number of times something could occur? Well, if you had a string of all A's and it was 1,000 characters long, then an A would occur 1,000 times. So I would have the value at index 1,000 would be 1, because it's the number of letters that appeared 1,000 times. So it seems to me like I don't need 100 of them. I need as many values as there are characters in my sentence. Let me try len of sentence. See if that changes things. I still have a lot of zeros. I'm going to need to find that last 0 and stop it. I don't want any zeros. I need to figure out a way of starting at the end and removing all the zeros. So I need this first non-zero element, because I don't want any of these zeros. I do have leading zeros. I don't have trailing zeros. So I need to start at the end and loop backwards, looking for a non-zero. How do I start in Python at the end and go this way? I remember that range goes from 0 to a number, or from X to Y. Just as a reminder, if I use the Python console and just type, for example, range 0, 10, I need to turn that into a list. That's the numbers from 0 to 9. How do I go from 9 to 0? Well, I could spend some time looking it up. That would be a good idea. But I already did that before I started recording. And I found out that the last value is how you go down. So that goes from 10 down to, but not including 0, because remember, in a range, it goes from this number up to, but not including that number. And this tells you how to increment between each one. So as an example of how range works, if I went from 0 to 10 by 2s, that would go 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. So what I need to do is loop. I want to find the last non-zero. I don't know what it is. So I'm going to loop over numbers in the range that goes from the end, that's the length of my list, which is ret, down to 0 by -1. And if the value at that location is not 0, then the last non-zero is nums, and I'm going to break. And now I want to slice my return list. I know where the last non-zero is. So I want everything up to and including that. And I have to remember that in a, why is that squiggly? Oh, because apparently I have that with this capital Z. Index out of range. Ret nums not equal to 0. I wish this would tell me what the value was, so I could think about what's going on, but I'm just going to print it each time through my loop. It was 43. That's the index that was out of range. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Oh. The length of the list is 43, but that means the last valid index is 42. I don't need that anymore. And that looked like 02411. That looks pretty good. So I think I'm going to test it. Pangram, test and run. Oh, list index out of range. I don't even know what it was. Just list index out of range with a single character. Well, something's not quite right. Maybe that was just a single character A? I don't even know. Let's try that. List index out of range on this line. While that parameter was a single character long, that means I have 1 0. Oh, but that means something could occur no times and something could occur 1 time. I have a lot of letters. I need 2 values there. So this is kind of, it looks to me like maybe it's off by 1. 25-1, no index out of bounds. I'm going to let you find out if that will work.